Snow White and Rose Red. There was once a poor widow who lived in a lonely cottage. In front of the cottage was a garden where 2 rose bushes stood, one of which bore white roses and the other red roses. She had 2 children who were like the 2 rose bushes. One was called Snow White and the other Rose Red. They were good and happy, as busy and cheerful as any 2 children in the world could be. Snow White was quieter and more gentle than Rose Red. Rose Red preferred to run about in the meadows and fields seeking flowers and catching butterflies. But Snow White stayed at home with her mother and helped her with the housework, or read to her when there was nothing to do. The 2 children were so fond of each other that they always held each other by the hand when they went out together. And when Snow White said, "We will not leave each other," Rose Red answered, "Never as long as we live." Their mother would add, "What one has, she must share with the other." They often ran about the forest alone and gathered red berries. No animals did them any harm, but came close to them trustfully. The little rabbit would eat a cabbage leaf out of their hands. The deer grazed by their side. The stag leapt merrily by them. And the birds sat still upon the branches and sang whatever they knew. No mishaps ever took them. If they had stayed too late in the forest and night came on, they laid themselves down near one another on the moss and slept until morning came. And their mother knew this and had no distress on their account. One time when they had spent the night in the woods and the dawn had roused them, they saw a beautiful child in a shining white dress sitting near their bed. He got up and looked kindly at them, but said nothing and went away into the forest. And when they looked around, they found they had been sleeping quite close to a cliff and would certainly have fallen over in the darkness if they had gone only a few paces further. And their mother told them it must have been the angel who watches over good children. Snow White and Rose Red kept their mother's little cottage so neat that it was a pleasure to look inside. In the summer, Rose Red took care of the house, and every morning laid a wreath of flowers by her mother's bed before she awoke, in which was a rose from each tree. In the winter, Snow White lit the fire and hung the kettle on the hook. The kettle was made of copper and shone like gold. It was polished so brightly. In the evening, when the snowflakes fell, the mother said, "Go, Snow White, and bolt the door." And then they sat around the hearth, and the mother took her spectacles and read aloud out of a large book. And the 2 girls listened as they sat and spun. Close by them lay a lamb on the floor, and behind them on a perch sat a white dove with its head hidden beneath its wings. One evening, as they were sitting comfortably together like this, someone knocked at the door as if he wished to be let in. The mother said, "Quick, Rose Red, open the door. It must be a traveler who is seeking shelter." Rose Red went and pushed back the bolt, thinking it was a poor man, but it was not. It was a bear that stretched his broad black head inside the door. Rose Red screamed and sprang back. The lamb bleated, the dove fluttered, and Snow White hid herself behind her mother's bed. But the bear began to speak and said, "Do not be afraid. I will do you no harm. I am half frozen and only want to warm myself a little beside you." "Poor bear," said the mother, "lie down by the fire. Just be careful not to burn your fur." Then she said, "Snow White, Rose Red, come out. The bear won't do any harm. He means well." So they both came out, and after a while the lamb and the dove came nearer and were not afraid of him. The bear said, "Here, children, knock the snow out of my fur a little." So they brought the broom and swept the bear's hide clean, and he stretched himself by the fire and growled contentedly and comfortably. It wasn't long before they grew quite comfortable and played tricks with their clumsy guest. They tugged his hair with their hands, they put their feet on his back and rolled him about, or they took a hazel stick and hit him, and when he growled, they laughed. But the bear took it all in good humor. Only when they were too rough, he called out, "Leave me alive, children. Snowy White, Rosy Red, will you beat your lover dead?" When it was bedtime, and the others went to bed, the mother said to the bear, "You can lie there by the hearth. and then you will be safe from the cold and the bad weather." And soon the day dawned, and the children let him out, and he trotted across the snow into the forest. From then on, the bear came every evening at the same time, laid himself down by the hearth, and let the children amuse themselves with him as much as they liked. And they got so used to him that the doors were never locked until their black friend had arrived. When spring came and everything outside was green, the bear said one morning to Snow White, "Now I must go away, and I can't come back for a whole summer." "Where are you going then, dear bear?" asked Snow White. "I must go into the forest and guard my treasures from the wicked dwarves. In the winter, when the ground is frozen very hard, they have to stay below and can't work their way through. But now, when the sun has thawed and warmed the earth, they break through it and come out and try to pry and steal, and what once gets into their hands and into their caves does not easily see the daylight again." Snow White was sad to see him go. She unbolted the door. The bear hurried out, catching his coat on the bolt. A piece of his fur tore off, and for a moment Snow White thought she saw gold shining through, but she wasn't sure. The bear ran away quickly and was soon out of sight behind the trees. A short time later, the mother sent her children into the forest to get firewood. There they found a large tree lying felled on the ground. Close to the trunk, something was jumping back and forth in the grass, but they couldn't make out what it was. When they got closer, they saw a dwarf with an old withered face and a white beard a yard long. The end of his beard was caught in a crack in the tree, and the little fellow was jumping back and forth like a dog on a leash, not knowing what to do. He glared at the girls with his fiery red eyes and cried, "Why are you just standing there? Can't you come here and help me?" "What are you doing there, little man?" asked Rose Red. "You stupid nosy goose," answered the dwarf. "I was going to split the tree and get a little wood for cooking. The small bit of food that folks like us need gets burnt up immediately with thick logs. We don't gobble down as much as you coarse, greedy people. I had just gotten the wedge in safely and everything was going as I wished, but the wretched wood was too smooth and suddenly sprang apart. And the tree closed so quickly that I couldn't pull out my beautiful white beard, so now it's stuck tight and I can't get away. And you silly, sleek, milk-faced things are laughing. Ugh, how hateful you are." The children tried very hard, but they could not pull the beard out. It was caught too tight. "I'll run and get someone," said Rose Red. "You senseless goose," snarled the dwarf. "Why would you get someone? You're already too many for me. Can't you think of something better?" "Don't be impatient," said Snow White. "I'll help you." She pulled her scissors out of her pocket and cut off the end of the beard. As soon as the dwarf felt himself free, he grabbed a bag full of gold that lay among the roots of the tree. He lifted it up, grumbled to himself, "Rude people, to cut off a piece of my fine beard. Bad luck to you." And then he swung the bag and went off without even once looking at the children. Some time after that, Snow White and Rose Red went to catch a dish of fish. As soon as they came near the brook, they saw something like a large grasshopper jumping toward the water, as if it were going to leap in. They ran to it and found it was the dwarf. "Where are you going?" said Rose Red. "You surely don't want to go into the water." "I'm not such a fool," cried the dwarf. "Don't you see that the cursed fish want to pull me in?" The little man had been sitting there fishing, and unluckily the wind had tangled his beard with a fishing line. Just then a big fish bit, and the feeble creature didn't have the strength to pull it out. The fish had the upper hand and pulled the dwarf toward him. He held on to all the reeds and rushes, but it was of little use. He was forced to follow the movements of the fish and was in urgent danger of being dragged into the water. The girls came just in time. They held him fast and tried to free his beard from the line, but it was no use. Beard and line were tangled fast together. Nothing was left but to bring out the scissors and cut the beard, losing a small part of it. When the dwarf saw that, he screamed out, "Is that polite, you toadstool, to disfigure one's face? Wasn't it enough to clip off the end of my beard? Now you've cut off the best part of it. I can't let myself be seen by my people." I wish you had been made to run the soles off your shoes." And then he took out a sack of pearls that lay in the rushes, and without saying another word, he dragged it away and disappeared behind a stone. Soon afterward, the mother sent the 2 children to the town to buy needles, threads, laces, and ribbons. The road led them across a moor where huge pieces of rock were strewn here and there. They noticed a large bird hovering in the air, flying slowly in circles above them. It sank lower and lower, and at last settled near a rock not far off. Immediately afterward, they heard a loud, pitiful cry. They ran up and saw with horror that the eagle had seized their old acquaintance, the dwarf, and was going to carry him off. The children, so full of pity, at once took hold of the little man and pulled against the eagle so long that at last he let his prize go. As soon as the dwarf had recovered from his initial fright, he cried with his shrill voice, "Couldn't you have been more careful? You dragged at my brown coat so that it is all torn and full of holes. You helpless, clumsy creatures!" And then he took his sack full of precious stones and slipped away again under the rock into his hole. The girls, who by this time were so used to his thanklessness, went on their way and did their errands in the town. As they crossed the moor again on their way home, they surprised the dwarf, who had emptied his bag of precious stones in a clean spot and had not thought that anyone would come there so late. The evening sun shone on the brilliant stones. They glittered and sparkled with all colors so beautifully that the children stood still and looked at them. "Why are you standing there gaping?" cried the dwarf, and his ashen little gray face became copper red with rage. He was going on with his insults when a loud growl was heard, and a black bear came trotting toward them out of the forest. The dwarf sprang up in fright, but he could not get to his cave, for the bear was already close. Then, in the terror of his heart, he cried, "Dear Mr. Bear, spare me. I will give you all my treasures. Look, the beautiful jewels lying there. Let me live. What do you want with a slender little fellow like me? You wouldn't feel me between your teeth. Come, take these 2 wicked girls. They are tender morsels for you, fat as young quails. For mercy's sake, eat them." The bear paid no attention to his words, but gave the wicked creature a single blow with his paw, and he did not move again. The girls ran away, but the bear called to them, "Snow White, Rose Red, don't be afraid. Wait, I'll come with you." Then they recognized his voice and waited. When he reached them, his bearskin suddenly fell off, and he stood there, a handsome man dressed all in gold. "I am a king's son," he said, "and I was enchanted by that wicked dwarf who had stolen my treasures. I had to run around the forest as a wild bear until his death freed me. Now he has received the punishment he deserved." Snow White married him, and Rose Red married his brother, and they split the great treasure the dwarf had gathered in his cave between them. The old mother lived peacefully and happily with her children for many years. She took the 2 rose trees with her, and they stood in front of her window, bearing the most beautiful red and white roses every year. Snow White and Rose Red represents complementary forces. Their harmonious relationship teaches that spiritual growth requires the integration of opposites. This reflects the Hermetic principle of polarity. Everything is dual, everything has poles. In magical practice, balancing masculine and feminine energies, active and passive forces, inner and outer worlds is necessary for achieving equilibrium and power. The sisters' names and personalities symbolize the red and white roses, which are common alchemical symbols for the union of opposites, sulfur and mercury, passion and purity, etc. Their unity at the end of the story signifies spiritual harmony, or the Philosopher's Stone. The mother figure embodies the divine feminine, offering wisdom, protection, and grounding. Her teachings of sharing and unity and how she would read to the girls emphasize compassion, interconnectedness, and guidance. Students of magic are encouraged to connect with the divine feminine through archetypes like Shekinah, the Great Mother, the Moon, or specific goddesses. Also, the archangels Gabriel and Anael, and to some degree, Cassiel. Connecting with the Divine Mother fosters intuition, emotional balance, and the ability to nurture both oneself and others, and also represents the divine substance that underlies all manifestation. The mother's role in this tale reflects the nurturing archetype found in many fairy tales, where the feminine principle provides the foundation for spiritual growth and moral guidance. The forest in the story could represent the deep mind, or the subconscious. This is a place of mystery, danger, and discovery. The sisters' adventures in the forest highlight the importance of confronting the unknown to grow spiritually. In magical traditions, the forest mirrors the descent into the deep mind, or into the astral plane. And this is where shadow work, dream exploration, and uncovering hidden knowledge occur. Magical practitioners are reminded to embrace the unknown and trust the process of self-discovery. The forest is a recurring motif in fairy tales, especially in European folklore. It symbolizes the liminal space where transformation and initiation occur. It is both a place of danger and the realm of potential. The bear is used as a symbol of transformation in this story. Initially feared, the bear is revealed to be a prince under an enchantment. This teaches that challenges often conceal opportunities for transformation. The bear represents the alchemical process of transformation, turning a base matter into gold. For students of magic, this is a reminder that trials and hardships are usually part of the great work, and they always lead to spiritual refinement and enlightenment. The enchanted animal motif is very common in folklore, and it symbolizes the hidden divinity or potential. The bear's shedding of its skin mirrors the alchemical process of purification and revelation. It also is a reminder that we are not to judge by appearances. We never know who we're dealing with, and it could be an angel or a prince in disguise. The dwarf embodies selfishness, greed, and attachment to material things. His repeated entrapments symbolize how the ego becomes ensnared by its own desires. The dwarf serves as a warning against allowing the ego to dominate our magical practice. True magic requires humility, selflessness, and a focus on higher spiritual goals. Transcending the ego is a key step in our spiritual journey. But notice that the ego was not killed by the two girls. The ego was taken care of by the bear. And it was as a result of an act of compassion by the two girls. Just like when Dorothy went to put out the scarecrow when he was on fire, she inadvertently killed the witch with the water. It was an act of compassion that destroyed the ego. The dwarf's entrapments, his beard caught in the tree, the fishing line, and the eagle's talons, symbolize the self-inflicted limitations of greed and pride. His downfall at the hands of the bear represents the triumph of higher spiritual forces over lower materialistic tendencies, just like the light always destroys the darkness. The angelic child who saves the sisters from falling off the cliff represents divine guidance and protection. This teaches that higher forces assist those who live in harmony and innocence. Trusting in divine guidance, whether through spirit guides, angels, the higher self, or deities, is crucial in magical practice. The angelic child reminds practitioners to remain open to signs, synchronicities, and intuitive nudges from the unseen realms. The angelic child reflects divine intervention and the protection of the innocent. The power of kindness and compassion is a major theme in this story. The sisters' kindness, even to the ungrateful dwarf, underscores the importance of maintaining compassion and integrity regardless of others' behavior. Many magical traditions emphasize the law of reciprocity and the energetic consequences of one's actions. Acts of kindness and compassion generate positive energy, aligning practitioners with higher vibrations and attracting favorable outcomes. The red and white roses symbolize the unity of opposites, passion and purity, physical and spiritual, and their blooming together signifies harmony and integration. In alchemy, the red and white roses represent the union of the red king, sulfur, masculine energy, and the white queen, Mercury, or feminine energy. This union symbolizes the completion of the great work and the attainment of spiritual enlightenment. The treasures hoarded by the dwarf are ultimately reclaimed and shared, teaching that true wealth lies in spiritual abundance, not in material greed. In the occult, treasures often symbolize hidden knowledge, spiritual wisdom, or the fruits of the great work. Practitioners are reminded to seek inner riches, wisdom, enlightenment, and self-mastery rather than external rewards. The external rewards are a natural byproduct of seeking the inner wealth. The reclaiming of the treasures reflects the archetypal hero's journey, where the protagonist gains spiritual and material rewards after overcoming trials. The marriages of Snow White and Rose Red to the prince and his brother symbolize the union of opposites and the attainment of spiritual wholeness. In magical traditions, marriages often represent the alchemical conjunctio, the sacred union, where dual forces merge to create something greater. This is the ultimate goal of many spiritual paths, the integration of spirit and matter, masculine and feminine, conscious and unconscious. The happy ending reflects the fairy tale tradition of resolving conflict through union and harmony, symbolizing the restoration of cosmic balance. Happily ever after is always a reminder in the occult, eternity always happens in the present moment. The sisters' initial fear of the bear and their eventual acceptance of him teach that the fear of the unknown can be overcome through openness and courage. The story encourages practitioners to face their fears and embrace the mysteries of the unseen. The bear's transformation from a feared figure to a beloved companion reflects the archetypal journey of confronting and integrating the shadow. Snow White and Rose Red is a timeless tale that offers profound lessons for students of magic. It teaches the importance of balancing dualities and integrating opposites, trusting in divine guidance in the process of transformation, rising above the ego and material attachments, approaching the unknown with courage and compassion, and striving for spiritual wholeness and enlightenment. There are many, many other symbols that we have not had time to touch upon. You can find these on your own, and I'd be very interested in hearing what you find in the comments below. This tale serves as a reminder that the journey of magic is one of balance, transformation, and the pursuit of inner wisdom. Thank you so much for joining me. Remember to please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you'll always know when we have new videos. Until next time, blessed be.